What is a hero? A mythological figure, often of divine descent, endowed with great strength or ability? An illustrious warrior? No. It's a person admired for achievements and noble qualities, one who shows great courage. Welcome to the What's a Hero podcast, where we dive deep into what a hero is and what makes them that hero. I'm your host, Ken Frownfelter, and I'm going to be introducing you to some of the world's most likely and unlikely heroes. You may have never heard of them before, and they most likely have never met you. But they all have one thing in common. They are ready to do whatever it takes to help make you better, even if it means sacrificing everything for you. Let's get into it.
This is episode 12 of the What's a Hero podcast with me, Ken Frownfelter. Where does heart come from? And I don't mean the organ in your chest, nor do I mean the rock band. I'm also not talking about that red symbol that adorns store shelves or guys' shoulders encircled with the word mom or in a deck of cards. You know, with that thing that's shot by a chubby baby with wings and a bow and arrow. I'm talking about the verb, heart. Your mood, your feeling, your courage, your enthusiasm, your central or innermost vital part of your essence. That heart. That thing that makes you stand up for what you believe in and feel strongly towards. Where does that come from? Why do we feel things differently towards certain things? Especially more than we feel for others. For that fact, why do we feel the way we feel differently than other people feel towards what they feel? We go through our lives believing that what we have or what we do is the most important until we are shown a glimpse of those things outside of our bubble. And I say bubble because we are too often so inwardly focused or short-sighted that we often forget some of the things we have been introduced to in our lives. Once that motivation has failed or the inspiration has waned, we return to our lives of short-sightedness. And I'm guilty of this myself at times. What we often do is see ourselves as the good guy, the guy that has the best interest in mind. But sometimes that best interest becomes our best interest and not the best interest of all those involved. Who else is involved, you may ask? Well, your family, your friends, your coworkers, your classmates, random people you run into out on the public, strangers. We have to keep others in mind while simultaneously working to better our hearts and minds by working hard, eating right, working out, reading, producing, serving others. And with that in mind, it reminds me of the Hearts and Mind campaign. If you're not familiar with what the Hearts and Mind campaign was, it's basically, and I'll pull it up here, and I'm reading off of Wikipedia. It's Hearts and Minds, as far as Vietnam was concerned, or winning the hearts and minds, refers to the strategy and programs used by the governments of Vietnam and the United States during the Vietnam War. And this was to win popular support of the Vietnamese people and to help defeat the Viet Cong insurgency. Pacification is the more formal term for winning hearts and minds. And in this case, however, it was also defined as the process of countering the insurgency. Military, political, economic, and social means were used to attempt to establish or reestablish South Vietnamese government control over rural areas and people under the influence of the Viet Cong. And I asked that question, what is heart? Well, they work towards, in Vietnam, they work towards winning those hearts, winning those minds. And that's how you do it. You don't do it by force. You don't do it by coercion. You don't do it by expectation. You do it by winning the hearts, by getting those people to see the good that you do and see that and say, hey, you know what? I want to be part of that. And that's what you do with your life. Vietnam was one of those things that was hard to go through, especially those guys that went through it. People back home, yeah, they struggle to have to maintain it, but a lot of times they were kids that go over there, kids, and I mean like 18, 19, some 17, 20, 21-year-old kids who are doing this, just got out of high school, and sometimes they were going against their will. They got drafted and they got drug over there, and they said, hey, you're going to do this. Kid never maybe shot a gun in his life, and now all of a sudden he's having to take the life of somebody else. And that's the hard thing to consider. The Vietnam War was also known as the Second Indochina War, and in Vietnam, as the resistance against war, or the resistance war against America, or simply the American War. And it was a conflict in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia from November 1, 1955 to the fall of Saigon on April 30, 1975. The big turning point in that was the Tet Offensive, and it was just one of those things that just took over Vietnam from 1955 to 75. And that's a huge 20-year-long war. And we've been in a darn near 20-year-long war in the United States now. And are we any better for it? A lot of the folks in Vietnam are wondering, were we any better for it? A lot of the folks that went and fought that war, that had nothing to do, never even heard of Vietnam before, go fight that war, and they say, hey, you know what? Were we any better for it? Well, I know some people that came back from that war and are better people, whether it was because of that war or because something inside of them that said, hey, I'm going to be better no matter what. The things that I saw, the things that I did, I'm going to try to be better, and I'm going to try to serve and do things for other people. And I have one of those people here with me today. And this gentleman, he fought in Vietnam. He grew up in the 50s and the 60s, and he developed his servant's heart. Whether it was during that time or afterwards, we get to find out today. So, with that, I want to welcome Gary to the What's a Hero podcast. Welcome, Gary.
Good morning, Ken. Thank you.
How are you today?
I'm good, actually.
Yeah?
Yeah, for an old guy.
For an old guy. So, you were in Vietnam,
yes.
Obviously, or else I'm totally off the mark, and I invited you here thinking something else. But and you have since been you've raised children, you've had your wife and loved your wife and been married, and you've bought houses and sold houses and worked jobs and done all these different things that life has been able to afford you in the United States. But there was a huge, I would assume, huge development of yourself while you were in Vietnam.
It's a different experience.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up, in average middle America, and up in Tacoma, Washington.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Well, I'm going to pause you there for a second.
Okay.
Since we're talking about that, and I do this with everybody I talk to, let's go back to Tacoma, Washington, then. Let's talk about growing up in Little Mill America. And you could take those headphones, you could just go right over the top, and so they don't fall off, and they're comfortable.
There you go.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
Oh.
So if you're listening in, Gary is new to the whole podcasting world, and I don't think you've ever been on one before, right?
No, this is my first.
Yeah.
You got my maiden voyage.
Perfect.
Cool.
Well, now you're going to be a pro after this, and we're not going to see you again because you're going to be so famous.
Well, till Sunday.
Okay. So let's go back to Tacoma. How'd you grow up? Who was Gary?
Gosh, Gary was just a kid on the block. I had friends. I think like any other growing up in suburban America.
Yeah.
We were a middle-class family. My dad and mom both had to work to keep food on the table and clothes on the kiddies. I had a bicycle. My sister had a bicycle.
So you played outside a lot. Well, I guess there wasn't a lot of TV watching back then.
No TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was black and white, and then the color TV was rainbows.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got TV later, but again, it wasn't something that was really, we didn't have to have TV. I mean, I remember one Saturday afternoon, I was out mowing the lawn, and I wanted to get done so I could get in and listen to the radio and hear Rin Tin Tin.
Yeah.
And the Lone Ranger and Hop Along Cassidy. Come on, y'all.
So you played outside, and you did all this stuff. And so I would assume you listened to the radio programs, and then you'd go out and try to emulate those characters.
Cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers, that whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't play fair. You didn't fall dead.
Yeah. Did you? Was it like a? Did you see what you wanted to do as you got older?
No,
or was it not even a thought?
No, that wasn't. In high school, I thought, I'd like to be a fireman, maybe. Or maybe I'd like to drive a semi-truck. Well, as life happened, I ended up doing B. I drove semis for 25 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Day job. I mean, it was in town all the time, but that's what I did for, raising a family. I drove semis.
Yeah.
I had no idea when I was in high school what I wanted to be.
Yeah.
The Vietnam War was coming on. I was, how do you say? I was younger than my class, than the class I was in. So it was decided for my best benefit that in the 7th grade year of my education, I got to go do it again.
Oh, that's
I
nice.
was so popular, they wanted me to help the upcoming class, they kept me there. But as things progressed, kids were getting ready to go to college, and they're all, as we got, junior, senior year, everybody's talking about going to college. I wasn't going to go to college. Mm-hmm. I was going to go in the military because that's what I had to do.
Is that what you said? Did you think of it like that? Like, or that you talked about it before, or was it something that you just knew I've got to do that's what I'm supposed to do, or I want to do?
Kind of like, that's kind of where, I don't know if my internalness said that's kind of where you're going to go.
Uh-huh.
That was where you're going to end up going.
So where did that come from?
Well, my all the men back to, let's see, a brother, a dad, an uncle, a cousin, all the men were in uniform.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did, and we had a thing going on. At the time, I was really naive.
Yeah.
No. So
yeah.
So I did that. My dad said, he knew about a program the Navy had. It was a 120-day delayment program where you go sign up and you promise that when you graduate, you'll go to the Navy boot camp. Well, I said, okay, so what are my options? He goes, Vietnam. Oh.
Yeah.
I'd seen pictures. I don't really want to go to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Not what I want to do. So the Navy will keep me out of Vietnam.
So you think?
That was my goal.
Right.
So we had, they got us up early in the morning and took us in for a battery of tests, and I did real well on the long, short, high, low tone test. I was in music in high school, junior high and high school. I've been in music since 6th grade.
Right.
I did well on that test, and in review, the petty officer that was going through my scores and such, he says, you did really well on this test. How'd you like to be a radioman? I thought, oh, that's cool. Why not? I knew nothing of that.
Right.
So the first thing you have to do to be a radioman is go to Basic Electronics Electricity Preparatory School, commonly known as BEEP School. Well, there you learn about henries and ohms and megawatts and herkowatts and that kind of stuff. Well,
Yeah.
when they put a schematic down in front of me, I used it to find my way from where I thought my house was going to be to where my girlfriend lived.
Okay.
I didn't do well in BEEP School. My brain is not for that.
Yeah.
No.
Obviously, you were thinking about your girlfriend as a high school kid.
Pretty
That's all
much. Yeah, well, yeah, that's a whole nother deal there.
Sure.
So I failed out of BEEP School.
Uh-huh.
And the petty officer says, okay, you got a choice. 2 choices. You can go to sea in the West Pacific as a Seaman E2 on a destroyer. My dad had told me stories, excuse me, pardon me, when he was on a battleship. He served on the West Virginia during World War II as a pharmacist mate. Uh-huh. His favorite thing to do was to go up in the crow's nest during storms, have a cigarette, and he had a can of water with him and stuff. He said he could watch destroyers go through waves. He saw aircraft carriers disappear.
Really?
He said when his ship would go down into a trough, the only thing and this was some pretty severe water, keep in mind, he could only see water around the ship. And he's in a crow's nest on a battleship. Now, if he was exaggerating, that's one thing, but if he was telling the truth, that's entirely different.
Sure, yeah.
So my mind was pretty well made up. I don't want to be doing any wave diving on a tin can. Mm-hmm. Not at all. So what's my other option? He goes, you can go to Vietnam. I said, oh, seriously? He goes, yeah, there's a boat outfit over in the Mekong Delta that needs some sailors on it. So, well, a boat is not a destroyer. A boat wouldn't go out into real heavy water, so let's go to Vietnam. And it was part of the patriotic thing.
Sure.
I thought I was being patriotic. I mean, it's my duty. I'm supposed to go do this.
Right.
So, pardon me, I went and did it. Excuse me. I went to the Mekong Delta with River Division 92. It was part of an Army-Navy operation out of a little burg called Dong Tam. Uh-huh. I was a 50 caliber gunner. When we went into general quarters, I had a 50 caliber that was my place to be.
And how old were you at this point?
I was 20. And I remember that so clearly because on my 21st birthday, I got in a firefight.
Oh, perfect.
No, not perfect.
No, yeah, absolutely. But so did you go in right after school? Right?
Oh yeah. July 5th, man. I was going to San Diego.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you for the first couple of years or whatever, you go to beep and fail out of beep school, and then you go to try to figure out other stuff that you're doing.
I just went. I mean, after beep school, I went back to. I went to Fort Eustis. Was it Fort Eustis? No, Norfolk, Virginia, for SEER training, survival, escape, evasion stuff.
Right.
In the piney woods of Virginia was where I got my Vietnam training.
Oh, okay.
Special stuff.
Yeah.
That was fun. We went on they had us do a map course, and the idea was to escape and evade.
Right.
Get away from people.
So as if you had gotten picked up and you were escaping from
Well, there's a group of us, and we were supposed to not get caught.
Okay.
That's the whole deal. Do a map course, day and night map course, don't get caught. Oh, and at dusk on the first day, they came by in a truck and threw a chicken at us. That's... I have to back up a touch. The day before we went out, each of us was given a piece of 1x2 about 7 inches long and a knife. And they said, make a fork and a spoon, you're going to need them.
Out of a piece of wood, huh?
Yeah. I still have them, actually.
That's cool.
But they threw the chicken off the back of the truck and said, here's dinner, boys. Oh, here's your axe. They handed us a hatchet, so we had to kill the chicken.
Make dinner that way,
Do that whole thing. Yeah, that was quite fun.
Yeah.
That was quite fun. But that was where I got my Vietnam training, and I went over and I got assigned to a boat. And that was just before Tet of 68. And I say Tet of 68 because that was a big push from the Viet Cong through the entire country. And they just said, okay, we're going to go shoot everything that breathes. And they shot everything that breathed. It was nuts. For about a month and a half, it was crazy.
And their intent on doing that was just to take over by force?
Well, I'm sure it was just to disrupt us.
Yeah.
They didn't have... You got to really hand it to the Viet Cong because they were an ingenious bunch of folks.
Yeah.
They make ugly little things to catch people and hurt them and kill them and all that kind of stuff out of bamboo. They didn't need... Of course, they used them very effectively. They didn't need weapons, guns, and stuff because they could do a very good job without them. And it was just to disrupt us, keep us off balance.
Yeah.
And they were tired of us being there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'd been there probably since Korea, since we'd finished up.
I don't know exactly.
Korea.
I don't know when exactly we got there as a U.S. force. I know that we were sending over advisors, quote, quote.
Yeah.
But the French were there long before us.
Do you think they saw us as another faction of the French, more occupiers of their country?
Occupiers, I think, is a good word,
yeah.
and not so much related to the French or with the French, because they almost ran the French out of the country. I'm not real good about the history of all of that stuff, because I was just trying to get through it all.
Yeah, and I guess you're just a kid.
Well, yeah,
and you had no other option.
Other
than
stuck.
Giant swells in the middle of the ocean, or steamy jungles.
You see, there's another thing too. The good Lord, I got to tell you, I must tell you at this point that the good Lord protected me through my entire military career.
Yeah.
Yes. I cite an incident that I believe to be real. Somebody else will discount it. They'll say, "Yeah, you're full of canal water. That's not how it works." We were under attack. We went out. I was on let me tell you about the boat first, then you get an idea where we are. Okay. I was on a modified landing craft. It was an LCM-6 They're 56 feet long. They're 25 feet wide. And without any extra armor on them, they draw sitting still probably 3-4 feet of water. The coxswain flat, where the guy that drives the boat, is toward the rear of the vessel.
Right.
In the modification process, they moved the steering center and the control center from the stern. They moved it to just aft of midships, which is just a little bit before the middle of the boat.
Right.
And they raised it probably 4.5 feet.
Okay.
And they surrounded it with armor, 3/4 plate steel, with the doors that could flop up and protect the coxswain and the radioman.
Okay.
The rest of the boat had, in that raised area where they built a superstructure, and it was made out of 4x8. I believe there were 4x8 sheets of 3/4 plate steel armor, and about 18 inches away from that, or less, probably a foot or so, they would lace the entire area with 1/2-inch rebar. And we would put sea ration cases up in against the armor wall, and lean an edge of it out and catch it on that bar armor, on the trigger or that rebar, so that anything coming in would hit that stuff and blow up and not get anybody inside.
Oh, cool.
Okay. Alongside, now, up in that area that they raised up, on the left and right side of the boat, they had they had a single 50 caliber machine gun. Now, in the middle of the vessel on the keel, raised up another 20 inches or so, was a 20 millimeter aircraft cannon. The guy the way he cocked that thing was he had to put his foot into a stirrup and yank down on it to pull the bolt back. That thing was just a crazy piece of work.
Yeah.
Forward in the well deck, our job was to carry troops. We could carry, I think it's 30 fully laden combat troops in our well deck. We had a number of vessels of that configuration in our division. We had other vessels of different configurations to do different things. We always traveled in convoy. We were a serious piece of work. If the Viet Cong decided to light us up, hellfire came out, man. I mean, that's just the way it was.
And was this primarily on like the rivers and stuff like that?
That was the whole purpose.
Because it was the Mekong Delta,
yeah.
So you're right there going into where it meets up with the ocean. And
yeah. Exactly. We would go to places that were inaccessible by land or air. It was just a convenient way of getting there.
It's just the canopy of the trees in which is too thick for a helicopter to drop anybody or to land to get anybody in.
Right.
And
no roads.
No trucks are getting in there.
Nope.
And for guys to march in there, hike in there, it's going to take days and days and days to
plus they're vulnerable.
Yeah.
I mean, look, guys, you just don't go tromping through the woods of Vietnam.
Sure.
You just don't do that. So that's how we traveled, and it was really scary. I'm sure glad I wasn't a Viet Cong shooting at them slow green boats. Oh, by the way, our top speed, 11. 11.
Is that knots or miles an hour?
Who cares?
Yeah, okay.
It's 11. In the well deck, on either side, there were 230 caliber machine guns. Also, there was extra armor along the walkways and things like that. So now I've been talking. Oh, now my gun turret, the 3 gun turrets, the 250s and the 20, they were encased with a formed piece of 3/4 plate armor.
Yeah.
Because of all this armor and the ammunition, all this extra weight on the boat, it started drawing more water. Well, that's not real conducive to going up shallow rivers.
Sure.
So what do? Well, let's put some foam on the sides of the boat. So they put 3x3x4 cubes of foam along both sides of the boat to keep it out of the water more.
Did that work?
Yeah, but still, it was only 11. You could get a non-modified LCM6 should probably get up to about 15 miles an hour, which is very different than 11.
Right.
If you've ever been to the circus or the fair where they have the ducks going back and forth and you shoot the BBs at them,
right?
That's 11.
That's 11. So more or less, you guys were ducks.
Oh yeah. Oh, exactly. Yeah.
So that's why
we could bring a lot of storm to the shore.
Sure.
Because another modification they made, the 40 millimeter anti-aircraft guns that they had on battleships and aircraft carriers and all that, they would make a mount forward of a modified LCM-6, and you're shooting 40 millimeter cannon stuff at people. Boomity, boomity, boom.
Jeez.
Then someone got a really great idea. How can we get a flamethrower to do this?
Right.
So they named that. They found out how to do it. They figured out how to put flamethrowers on the front end of a modified LCM-6 and make it shoot an arc of fire into the jungles.
Wherever that fire was coming from, wherever the gunfire was coming from, you can just
hopefully just
start a barbecue on the shore.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they call the boat Zippo.
So were there multiples of these that were
there? I think there were. Let me think. There was. I was in River Division 92. I think there were 2 or 3 other river divisions that had probably 30 vessels of various configurations.
Yeah.
In operating in different areas, and they came up with a good idea partway through my tour. I think that was the first time I saw it. They figured out how to put a landing pad on an LCM-6, so you could put a helicopter on it, and they used that for medevacs.
That's pretty cool.
That was very cool.
Yeah,
it was really neat. I don't know where I was going with all that.
So you wanted to explain the boat first.
The boat first,
and so then you could explain.
Oh, the thing that happened. Yeah. The good Lord protected me. Yes,
sure.
We're in a firefight one day, and on the shore. Now, my boat captain told me you fired that thing and you aim it 1 foot above where the water meets the dirt. I don't care what else is there. That's where I want you to shoot.
Okay.
1 foot above the water line. Makes sense to me.
Okay.
So this particular day, I'm doing that, and I see this puff of smoke, white smoke. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of this puff of white smoke is a little black dot. Now, keep in mind, we're probably 50 yards or less from the shore. We're right up against it.
Okay.
This is a real small AO that we're doing this in right now.
Right.
This little black dot kept getting a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. And then the next thing I realize is there's a big splash at the side of the boat and an explosion. That was I think it was an RPG.
Okay.
Rocket propelled grenade coming right in my window.
Coming right at.
Come on. I'm looking out a hole that's 7.5 inches wide.
Okay.
And I'm seeing this thing coming at me, and I'm going, what the heck? And it hit the water. God says, not today, Slick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, were there a contingent of Viet Cong there on the shore? Is that just middle of the firefight?
I have no idea. I never saw anything but the 1 foot mark above the waterline.
Oh, yeah.
My whole tour of Vietnam on that boat, only one time did I have a clear target that would be a target, and that was huge terracotta water jugs.
Okay.
And we went by a village, and they opened up on us from the village, it happened a couple, 3 or 4 times, but not often. Usually they're in the jungle, so they didn't want to get their houses all shut up because we could level an area.
Sure.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
But this thing went off, and the jugs. That's the one time I had any target to shoot at.
Yeah. Otherwise,
other time I'm shooting at trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said you got in a firefight on your birthday.
Yeah, I did. My 21st birthday, we're on an operation someplace, and we were at a relaxed general quarters. And I was sitting at the base of my mount, and I was eating a can of pears. See a can of pears out of the sea ration.
The sea ration.
And I'm enjoying my pears. And all of a sudden, the world comes unscrewed, and we got to start shooting and going, oh, pooh, here we go, bang, bang, bang. All right. So all the shooting stops, and we're all done. And I take a deep breath and go, okay. I sat back down. I says, where's my pears? Where's my can of pears? Come on. It's my birthday, you freak. Give me my pears back.
Right.
I found my can, and it had an empty shell casing in it. So I just picked it up, shook it off, threw it aside, grabbed my spoon, and
kept eating your pears.
Finished it, my pears.
This is my birthday pears.
This is my birthday pears.
And I'm assuming that firefight didn't last long.
It usually didn't.
And was it just a group that was passing through, and you guys took care of them, or was it a?
No, they had us set up.
Uh-huh.
They didn't see. How do you hide 15 boats going up a small river? You don't.
Mm-hmm.
They're only going 11 miles an hour, so you got lots of time to get done what you got to do to set up to kill them.
Sure. So they sit there, and they're on shore, and so they set up that area. You guys pass through there. You guys are those ducks that are passing through.
Exactly.
And then once you pass through, then the firefight was over.
Pretty much.
And
Pretty
so
much.
that happened often.
I was in 25 or more firefights.
Okay.
They gave us a little ribbon saying that. It's the combat action ribbon.
Uh-huh.
It's a ribbon given to individuals. It's an individual award given to those who have been in 25 or more firefights. Okay.
You just did your job.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And were there large amounts of casualties, or that you guys?
We didn't, as in our group, we didn't have. We had 2 people in the year that I was there that were killed as a result of action.
Uh-huh.
One was a lieutenant who, I believe, he got killed on April 4th. That was the day that we got really seriously ambushed. They had us all set up in a crossfire. We're going around a place they called Snoopy's Nose.
Uh-huh.
And if you look at the side profile of Snoopy's nose, that's what it looked like.
Oh, it had a round, a little bump, and then round again.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
So they had us every way but Sunday. Another time, one of our guys, a 20 caliber gunner, or 20 millimeter gunner, we had gotten back from an operation, and he was cleaning his weapon, and he had one that misfired, one round that misfired. So they abandoned the mount for the duration until we got back. Mm-hmm. And he was taking it out, and he had it back behind. He was going to throw it out into the water, and it was back beside his head, and it went off.
Oh, man.
And it took him.
Oh.
That was a bad day.
Yeah, I can imagine. So
The Army took more casualties than we did on our boats.
Yeah. You think about it. You don't hear a lot of the Navy stories in Vietnam. I mean, yeah, you guys were there. You don't hear a lot of. I mean, you sometimes hear about the Air Force stuff and the Marines and the Army, though, when you hear about Vietnam or think about Vietnam or read stories about Vietnam, it's always those guys were taking the brunt of everything. They were doing a lot of the trash of the war. They were getting dumped on. They were also doing a lot of the good stuff, but they were getting dumped on a lot of the times. Mm-hmm. And so when it comes back to it, we hear about the Army and the Marines, but then when you start saying, "Oh, I was in the Navy," oh, so you just sat on a ship out off the shore of Vietnam?
That seems to be a common thought in the conversations I've had over the years.
Right.
There was little press given to us back home.
Uh-huh.
My mom did say, "Oh, we saw you guys. We saw the boats," and they did a really great documentary. I wish I could remember where I saw it and who did it, because it was on TV one night within the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. My wife and I were watching TV, and all of a sudden, that's the boat I was on, because the guy, the cameraman for this documentary, was on the boat behind us.
Oh,
and he shot a view out the window of the coxswain flat, and they were right behind our boat. I mean, I still remember the hull number on the boat.
Yeah,
T92-1.
Yeah,
Tango Troop. That's what that was. And hey, honey, there's my boat.
It's my boat.
There you go.
Yeah, and then we would have seen a young Gary. No,
I was probably eating pears by the gun.
Hide behind.
I'd get down behind that armor, man. I'm be a friend of that armor stuff.
Yeah.
We got back from one operation. That's the second time that I can tell you that the good Lord had me.
Yeah.
Yeah. We got back, and to clean my weapon, we had to take the barrel off. So to get outside, or to take the barrel off, you had to get outside the mount, and there was a catwalk around, so we could get around there. Okay, so I walk up there, and I'm everything's as it should be for me to do what I'm going to do.
Right.
So I'm unscrewing the barrel, and I happen to look up, and oh my gosh, across that 7.5-inch window, on the left and the right side, each side had 2 places where there was bullet marks.
On either side of the window.
Two on each side.
Yeah.
Spaced evenly apart. AK-47 rounds.
So
I'd have been a dead puppy.
Had they gotten any more to the right or the left, it would have been you.
I was bracketed, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
But not that day.
Not that day.
That wasn't my day.
So, and that's awesome. You know, you sit there and you say, how many times did you get to say that? Not today. And apparently more than 25.
Mm-hmm.
More than 25.
Yeah.
But two specifics that you can cite.
Oh, yeah.
That you know for sure, had it gone right or left or one way or the other.
There might be one more day. We had the boats had to go in for a periodic maintenance.
Yeah.
And they took them out of the water and did a whole bunch of stuff. When that happened, it was a week process. When that happened, we would go on R&R.
Uh-huh.
So we went on R&R. Our boat was out of the water. We came back from R&R. We got a mission in the morning, guys. All your ammo, we stacked all your ammo in the back of your boat. It's in the water. You're ready to go. See you later. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
This is like at 6 o'clock at night. So
I was hoping to come back and take it easy and then
like a day,
wake up and
come
have
on.
some time to
do my laundry. Come
prep.
on.
Yeah.
I think. So we got going, and we would always take off before light in the morning. We'd always pick up our troops before light. I don't know why. That's what we did. So here we go. We're off on operation, and we've got ammunition for a while on each of the gun stations. But still, we've got a stern full of, we got hand grenades back there, because we use them. We've got C4 back there, which is a handy little thing to have.
Sure.
We've got concussion grenades. We've got ammunition for 3 different kinds of weapons. It's sitting back there on the back of the boat.
All right.
Well, we go out, we're on the operation. Of course, we got shot at. We got in a firefight here. We go do this again. Bang, bang. We get all done, and we retreat to a larger body of water because we're going to have to move upstream and pick these guys up at another point.
Right.
So we go back to the back of the boat, and here's all this ammunition still. So we start moving it, and I say, well, what's this? And I reached down, and I picked up the tail section of an RPG.
As in one landed on your boat, but it hadn't
landed
exploded?
Next to the boat, exploded, and the tail section went up and landed on the boat.
Uh-huh.
So the guy missed by 8 feet.
Holy cow.
It would have been 4th of July on the water, man.
Sure.
Could have been. I mean, I'm just saying. Who knows what would happen if it had hit that?
Yeah.
Probably would have exploded all over the place. You never know.
Yeah. Well, like you said, there's all these different things that could have happened, would have happened, and had one thing been one way or one thing gone another, or, you look at something the way that it was, and you know that, had I not gone left or gone right, or had they not made this decision, and that's what life basically is just a decision. And yet if you just paranoia yourself and say, you know what, I'm not going to, I have to stay right here and I follow this path, or I have to do this, you have to be open to those things outside of you to say, okay, is that worth it? If I make this decision, I've got to live with this decision I make, and you go that way.
In some cases, sometimes you don't have time to think of the ramifications of your action.
Sure.
You do what you're trained to do.
Mm-hmm.
Or what, in my case, and the case of other guys, because we didn't have a lot of training to go into this scenario, you reacted from what you've learned by being there.
Yeah. And so would you say that you had your training and you had your experience? Which one did you think you may have learned more from, or been more
the experience
prepared based off?
The experience.
The experience.
Oh, yeah, because it was real life.
Mm-hmm.
The training to get there. What are you going to learn about a tropical jungle in the piney woods of Virginia?
Sure.
How to kill a chicken.
Right. how to make silverware out of wood. Right.
Yeah.
But I guess that's almost metaphorical, where your experience in life, those things are going to prepare you. So if you sit back and you say, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sit here in my own little world and I'm going to do these things that I know to do. You're never going to grow. You're never going to progress. You're never going to produce. You're more or less going to just consume, and you're not going to become options.
You'll not be a productive member of the herd, if you will.
Right. And I think everybody wants, well, I don't want to be a sheep like a herd. Well, you're not. That's not what we're talking about. You're not that sheep, because we're in this together, whether we like it or not.
Exactly. And one instance kind of brings that to the fore. We had come in off an operation, and the Army had taken some casualties. Mm-hmm. I was at one end of my boat, our boat, cleaning it. On the back, there was 2 Army guys, and they were handling body bags.
Oh.
And they were throwing them from one boat to the next.
Right.
The old
heave-ho.
potato bag heave-ho thing.
Sure.
And I thought that was not respectful.
Yeah, right.
So I said something. I walked back and I says, guys, I'm sorry, but can you show a little more respect for these guys? They've gone out and served their time, and they've given everything they've had to give, and this is not a way that they should be treated. And he says, my friend, one of the guys, pardon me, he says, my friend, we've been doing this for 45 minutes now. My friend and I here have handled 6 bodies. One of them was my friend. We have to take these guys in and have them processed.
Right.
This is not a pleasant job to do. So thank you for your concern, but this is how we got to do what we got to do. And I said, okay.
Right.
So what do you do? It's one of the ugly sides of
Yeah.
it. Because here, 12 hours ago, these guys walked onto a boat.
Right. Well, here's the thing: is war's ugly.
Oh yeah, it's hell. No, don't get me wrong. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Pounding on your table.
You're fine.
War is hell. If you want an example of a war, you go sit in the middle, or an example of hell, go stand in the middle of a battlefield. That's hell.
All this talk about, well, I'm a warrior, I'm a this, I'm a that. You don't know anything until you actually do it.
Yeah.
Those people that say, well, I want, we have all this crap going on with the media and political junk and everybody, we need a civil war and all this different crap that you might hear. The people that are calling mostly for it have no idea. They have zero idea what exactly it is. You take someone like yourself or anybody else that's been in a battle, that's fired their weapon at another person, and you tell them, hey, what we're going to do is we're going to go shoot those people who live in the same country that we do, and because they believe just a little bit different than we do. And we're gonna fight them and kill them. Now you got to remember, you're gonna kill somebody. You're gonna actually kill multiple people, and you need to kill multiple people. That's what you got to go do. Those people that are calling on that and saying, "Hey, this is what we need to do," have zero idea on what it takes.
They don't know. They don't know.
If you've seen dead bodies before, if you've seen your friends, you've seen people you talked to recently that now are dead. Mm-hmm. That whole idea that, we have to have a civil war so we can... No, the last people that want to have a civil war, that want to fight in a war...
Are the soldiers.
Are the ones who are most trained and most capable of doing it.
Exactly. That's exactly right. It's too bad. And sadly, and I didn't do a lot of studying about it after the Vietnam, none of that. All I've picked up from it is what I've heard from other sources, is that was a political war.
Sure.
That's... I almost used a bad word. That's crap, man.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah. So whether it's political war or not, there were still American guys who had the opportunity, had their entire life ahead of them, that had got it stripped away.
Yeah.
Because somebody's politics.
Exactly. And they could give that's, what's the fancy word? I'm sorry, I can't think of Sorry, I can't think of the word. It's the expense of war.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Hats off. I want to. I was thinking about something while you were talking.
Sure.
And I want to give a hats off right here and a huge thank you to anybody that hears this that was a tunnel rat.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Why do you say that?
I'm having a moment.
Have the moment, buddy. Have that moment.
You talk about people that don't understand war.
Right.
One of my very best friends was a tunnel rat.
Yeah.
And I said, what did you do? He says, well, they gave me a flashlight, a 45, and a K-bar. Go in that hole.
Right.
No, thank you. Crawling down, you have absolutely no idea what you're going to face. You may not come out of that.
And you're talking about these holes. If you're not familiar with the war, especially in Vietnam, And they had these similar tunnels and holes in World War II and on the Pacific Islands, but those things, they're small, and you have to be a small statured person to be able to fit through into them.
Yes.
And
you couldn't make it.
Just because of too wide of shoulders or whatever, right?
Exactly.
You got to be skinny and short.
Mm-hmm.
Going through those things. And those guys, they were able to go miles and miles, right? They had miles and miles of tunnels.
I don't know. I don't know how far they had to go.
Well, I'm talking about the Vietnamese.
Vietnamese. We got called to a mission, and our job was to take some troops in a very, very small waterway.
Right.
We started up the waterway, and we were told to turn around and go back because there was going to be a B-52 strike in that area. They had found a complex that's it was a 9-story complex.
Right.
This is the Viet Cong. This is the enemy.
Okay.
They had a 9-story complex. The top ninth story, the top floor of this 9-story complex was 3 stories below ground level. Whoa is right. So we got turned around. Almost didn't. You know, it was one of those 3-point turnarounds that you do.
Okay, yeah.
In the Safeway parking lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was with a boat. So we got away from the area, and about 25 minutes later, we heard bombs going off. We couldn't see the bombers.
Yeah.
We could feel. Now we're on water yet, and we could still. Well, the shockwave didn't care where it went, but we could feel the air move.
Yeah. From
the shockwave of the bombs going off. Well, they went away, and then we got the okay to take the guys in. We got bombarded by chunks of clay, gray, rock-hard clay, falling off of trees onto our boat.
Whoa.
That's what happens when you get that B-52s in action, man. They tore up a bunch of stuff.
They were trying to just wipe out that
they weren't
complex that was...
Actually, it was just soften up.
Oh.
Because they couldn't... It's 9 stories deep.
Right.
Below 3 stories. So it starts 60 feet. What's a story, 20 feet-ish? I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the kind of ingenuity and the kind of time that the Viet Cong had to do what they were doing. I mean, they had a hospital, they had ammunition capabilities, they had birthing, they had cooking, it was an underground city.
Yeah. And so, you know, you going back to your buddy who was saying that it was just he had the .45 flashlight
and a K-bar knife and
his steel will.
Yeah. And okay, I got to go do that. It's my job. I'll go do it.
Right.
And he's easy going. Today he's just easy going guy. You know, don't light him up.
Yeah.
No.
There's a fuse there because he's probably there had to be some kind of going in there with the absolute unknown.
Oh yeah.
And every single corner, every single step is another one that you don't know if you're gonna.
You don't.
Where you're gonna run into.
I don't have the courage to do something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, sitting here talking to you, no, I don't.
Right.
In that
context of where he was at,
maybe.
But yeah, but you don't know.
Maybe yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'd go or not.
But yeah, but just the fact that he did that and who he was.
And I ran into another guy. We do the food bank at church, and where we get the food from. There was a guy working out there, and he was wearing a Vietnam vet hat.
Yeah.
And I said, "Where'd you serve?" He goes, "Blah blah blah." I said, "What'd you do?" He goes, "I was a tunnel rat."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's
nuts.
It is nuts. I mean, yeah, like you said, hats off to them because that's
exactly.
It's a
God
huge
bless
thing.
you all.
Yeah. So you go to Vietnam. You go through Vietnam. You come out the other end of Vietnam.
That was just my first year. I spent 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went up and I was in Da Nang for the second year.
Yeah.
Wholly different scenario. I mean, it was great duty.
Yeah.
It was
way better than
I was non-combatant. I was in a service craft outfit. We had once again LCM-6s that had been modified, not with the armor,
right,
but with either tractor tires or some kind of a bumper device, a fender device, because they were used as a pusher boat at what they call deep water piers.
Oh, okay.
The cargo ships coming into the north of Vietnam would come into the Deepwater Pier, and they'd use our LCM-6s to just push the ships into their slot.
Oh,
small tug duty.
Kind of tugboats, yeah,
Yep,
yeah.
Exactly. And these guys, that's why I learned to drive boats.
Yeah.
Oh, I tell you, these guys, there was a LCM-6 has got 2 Gray Marine 671 engines, twin screw. They're light. You can do a lot of stuff with them. You can make them go sideways. You can make them turn in their own length.
Yeah.
I watched a guy bring one in. They parked him on this causeway, which is a causeway. It was 3 barges linked together. One was admin, one was repair, and the other was engine repair.
Mm-hmm.
Guy brought his boat in one day. He brought it in across the front of the other boats, had to back it in. And this is crazy. He just brought it in, turned it, and backed it into a slot no wider than his boat.
Yeah.
Shoved everything, and he just stepped off the back of the boat. I mean, it was crazy.
Knew exactly what he was doing, how to do it.
Yes, the guy was. Yeah. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were up there, and you up there for another year, and you liked that duty.
Oh, yeah, it was great duty. Oh, it was great duty.
Yeah.
It's interesting how I got to where I was. I reported to. I'm sorry. I reported to Da Nang, and I had to go to the admin office. It was in a building they called the White Elephant. To get there, you have to ride a 40-foot personnel boat, 40-foot open hull boat. The guy that was driving the boat that day, was the best man at my wedding with Kathy.
Yeah,
yeah, that was cool. He's still a very, very, very good friend. We're still in touch.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I went to the White Elephant and I talked to this. Now I'm an E3. I'm still just
a plebe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to this E3 yeoman. No offense, yeoman. You guys got hard jobs. It's tough. I know. Thank you for doing it. But he says, "Oh, I see you were in the Delta." I said, "Yeah." He says, "I got a really good spot for you." And when he said that, I immediately hoisted a red flag because when he said, "I got a spot for you," he's playing Monopoly or some stupid board game, and I'm just a piece of plastic. Yeah,
no, you're the thimble.
Yeah. So okay, here we go. He says, "Well, I got a spot for you." And I says, "Well, where's that?" And he goes, "It's in Quaviette." And I says, "On what? What's a Quaviette?" He says, "Well, you're going to be crew on a YFU." What's a YFU? Well, it's a really great big landing craft. Because I didn't know what a YFU was at the time.
Right.
Yard freight utility, I think. I don't know. I said, "Wow, do they ever they got guns on them?" He goes, "Yeah, they do." And I said, "Well, God, man, do they ever get in firefights?" He goes, "Yeah, they do." And I says, "I'm not going."
Yeah. I've been there, done that.
he did a double take on me. He goes, "What?" And I says, "I'm not going, dude. I just came from the Mekong Delta. I've been on a boat for 12 months. I know a lot about firefights. They pretty well suck."
Yeah. They don't get better.
Yeah. "What else do you have?" He goes, "That's it. You want to go talk to my lieutenant?" I said, "Absolutely." So I went and I'm talking to this lieutenant junior grade officer, and he says, "I understand you don't want the excitement that my yeoman's going to give you." And I said, "That's correct, sir. I don't.
Right.
I've got 12 months of combat, plus 30 days leave I just came off of." He says, "Well, thanks. I got a spot for you." I went to a place called Service Craft. Service Craft had all these little pusher boats. They had a garbage scow that went and collected garbage from other vessels. They had tugboats. They had a crane, all kinds of stuff. My job there was to be a mail orderly. I was given the keys to probably a 62 or 3 international half-ton pickup.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, or you got to keep water in it because the radiator leaks.
Yeah.
Okay. So I got familiarized with what where I was going to be and what I was going to do. Now I got to go into this place called Camp Tenshaw and get the mail.
Right.
So I have to take this truck. Well, a truck had just come back from a supply run from a supply guy that was also part of our attachment or detachment. So I popped the hood on this thing because I'm going to do this. You're supposed to look at all this stuff before you drive them.
Right.
Well, the crown of the radiator has got a stream of water coming out of it. Well, this is no fun. What this?
Sure.
I got to drive this? Come on. I happen to have a pack of juicy fruit gum in my pocket.
Okay.
I took out a stick of juicy fruit gum and got it good and soft and pushed it over the hole of that radiator. It was still there 12 months later, and I only added water once. So my job
lowest bidder.
Yeah.
Apparently, juicy fruit is
works
is
really
a
well.
contractor.
I still have a pack in my car.
Maybe.
That's what it's for. Patches holes. So there you go, auto fans.
Nice. So
but it was good duty up there. I had good duty.
Yeah.
The one real bad thing that happened up there was toward the end of my tour, there was one of the YFUs had ammunition on it, and it was resupplying the Marines' ammunition dump.
Yeah.
And somebody threw a satchel charge in it and blew the bow across a street. I mean, it blew the bow probably 30 yards from the boat.
Wow.
And that ammunition dump caught, and it went off for 3 days.
4th of July and the 5th and the 6th of July.
Yeah. Yeah, really.
Yeah.
That was pretty scary. And we were, I'm guessing, 4 to 5 miles away from that site. Yeah. And we could feel the concussion of a large bunker going on.
Wow.
Oh, it was crazy.
So you were Vietnam. You said it was near the end of your tour,
mm-hmm.
and you come home not to fanfare like you saw in Vietnam, or I mean in World War II and all the newsreels you see or anything like that. You come home to an ungrateful, I guess, nation.
Mm-hmm. Some of them were, yeah. I flew into SeaTac Airport, and fortunately there was a bunch of military guys getting off that particular flight, and we were jeered, people,
yeah,
all that. I blocked it out and left.
And so it's you go and you got family that was like happy you're home. You got friends who are like you made it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you decided, hey, I'm going to go. You got out of the Navy at that point?
No, I didn't. I had another year to go.
Oh, okay.
I went back to Rhode Island.
And
I served. Excuse me. I didn't want to go to. I would have gone to the West Pacific.
Yeah.
You had the West Pacific, the Westpac, and you had the Atlantic Fleet. The Atlantic Fleet went to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
They did med cruises.
Uh-huh.
Anybody knows what a med cruise is? You know what a med cruise is.
Okay.
I don't.
Oh.
I never made it.
You never got to do
I
that.
Didn't do it. But I went to the West Coast, or to the East Coast, because I'd never been there.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, well, hey, why not go see it? So 2 of the folks that I was in Da Nang with were on a ship in Newport, Rhode Island.
Uh-huh.
Ironically, the USS Puget Sound.
Oh, okay. That's funny.
Yeah, I was on that for a year.
Yeah.
Cool ship.
Great
duty. Great duty.
Yeah.
Well, the guy that I was in Vietnam with, the enlisted guy, was a boat coxswain. He was the other half of the 2-man crew that ran the personnel boat back and forth to the White Elephant thing. He was Petty Officer 3rd bosun mate on the Puget Sound, and his job came up. A job that came up for him was being coxswain on a captain's gig. Our ship had 2 officer motorboats, 31-foot fiberglass, really nice boats. Right. One for the captain and one for officers. And in March, the petty officer came to me and said, "Would you like to be on the captain's gig? That means you'll stand watch stander's liberty, which means when your section comes up for duty, you don't stand it. Because as soon as that bottom of that boat hits the water, you're on it, your crew.
Right.
You got watch stander's liberty." So, without giving away too many trade secrets, I'll say it was very, very good duty.
Okay. So
extremely good duty.
Yeah, if they still have that and somebody's looking for that's the sort of thing you want to try to look for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So you like you said, you finished out your time there in the Navy,
mm-hmm.
and then you went back to Washington. And lived happily ever after, I'm assuming.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So, but you said you became a truck driver.
I did. I was working with the Milwaukee Railroad.
Mm-hmm.
I had a really great job, and then I was working. My seniority would allow me to hold a late morning day job in Seattle, which was very hard to get.
Yeah.
It's a small switching yard. They ran 3 crews a day. 5. There were 5 crews a day. And it was good duty. It was good work. I was outside, playing with trains. It was cool.
Yeah, that's what every little boy wants to grow up, just playing with trains.
Hey, I grew up listening to steam engines, man.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome. It's a whole. People today don't know.
Yeah.
What that's like.
That's cool.
It's awesome.
So you do the.
Well, the Milwaukee Railroad went out of business.
Uh-huh.
They had the quickest route to the east across the top of the U.S. The nearest competition was Burlington Northern, and they had a grade that was I understand it to be a 2.2% grade going over the Cascade Mountains. The Milwaukee had a 1.7% grade, which was less of a hill, which means the train can go faster.
Sure.
There you go.
Yeah.
They gave up Lines West. Lines West ran from, I think it was Deer Lodge, Montana to Tacoma.
Mm-hmm.
And they gave all that up. They didn't want to afford maintenance of the way.
Oh.
So I had to find a different gig.
Sure.
So I went to truck driving school on the VA bill. I worked in the railroad at night and went to truck driving school during the day and got out of that. And I ended up with a job as a hostler for a company called Golden State Foods. Mm-hmm. And their mission was to serve Oregon, Washington, and Idaho McDonald's restaurants.
Oh.
So I was with them for about 3 years.
Yeah.
3 or 4 years.
And so this whole time,
Truck driving. Well, then I was driving truck, and then I did that. I dispatched with them for a little bit. I was on my way to work Sunday morning in May, and Mount St. Helens blew up.
Oh wow!
My boss had gone on vacation for 2 weeks the day before. It was kind of ugly for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
we got ash and trucks and food and stuff to get someplace you can't go there because of this, and they got to rerun you backwards. That means your truck's loaded backwards. That's not happy.
Yeah.
It was ugly.
So all these things you're doing that you're driving truck and you're just trying to
living life,
living life and trying to raise family and kids and the whole thing and trying to do all the stuff you need to do, so you can just enjoy that stuff that you fought so hard to maintain or have, because that's what you thought that was your duty back then, and so now you're living that life. So you go in and you become, dad, and you become worker guy, and you live your life just trying to do the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much it. Living a dream.
Yeah. Is that what you saw yourself doing, and you said, hey, this is... Or did you ever think that, I should go back to school, or I should do this, or what if I were to...
We had... my wife was a school teacher. I was making pretty good money. I worked in a hardware store for a while, and then I went back to truck driving because I got laid off from the hardware store. Uh-huh. So I got a job driving semis in town, and I did that for 25. That job lasted 25 years. And that was when I was, raising the family and doing all that stuff. I mean, I was part of Americana, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
Go for a Sunday drive, go to church on Sundays sometimes. And
and you loved it.
Sometimes. Yeah.
I guess the overall, is that something that you said, hey, this is
we had a good life.
Yeah.
And we had a blessed life because without the help of the good Lord, we wouldn't have had any of that.
Right. So you've mentioned that a couple times now, that, in Vietnam, that had the Lord not been there, you wouldn't be here.
Right.
A couple times specifically.
I think
you can see.
I truly think so.
And so now you mention this, because the Lord had done something to make sure and provide and bless you and all these different things. Mm-hmm. So would it be safe to assume that you have a good relationship with Him, with the Lord?
Yeah. I'm a work in progress. I got long. The more I learn, the more learn I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I guess that's the trick is you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And some people think, well, I do know because I watched TV or I read in a book or I did this, so I know.
Right.
But I think the more often that if we can sit back and we can lose our ego for a minute, and I mentioned this before in previous podcasts, that if you can lose your ego for a minute and say, you know what, I don't know XYZ or I don't know this sort of thing, you're going to be so much more open to learning XYZ. You're going to be so much more open to letting people know that, hey, I don't know this. Can you show me?
Oh, absolutely.
And so that development of a relationship is going to come in because you are working with this other person to say, hey, I'm not good at this. You're good at this. Show me how to do this. And so when you teach and when you learn from somebody else, there's absolutely a relationship that builds.
I think when I was after I got out of we don't know this yet. My Navy career was 3 years, 9 months, 28 days, 8 hours, and 32 minutes.
Oh, all right.
Just in passing.
Sure.
I don't know why I said that. I learned stuff. One of the things I learned in the National Guard, after I got out of the Navy, I was in the National Guard for 22 years.
Yeah.
On boats.
The Army National Guard
had more boats than the Navy.
Really?
Yes.
And you were able to take what you learned in the Navy and take it to the National Guard.
One of the things I learned was that I could say I don't know easily.
Yeah.
Because I could figure out where to get the information.
Uh-huh.
If you ask me a question, you say, Ken, I don't know.
Right.
But give me, I know where I can get the answer.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you. That's what I do.
Right. And I think that's a leadership trait. Let's say that you do something and you fail at it or whatever. How come you did this? How come this happened? Who's to blame on this sort of thing? And you take that ownership, you take that blame, and you say, I did it. But check it out. I did it this way, and this is why it failed. But here's what I'm going to do next time.
Mm-hmm.
Or here's what I'm going to do. The same idea is I don't know that answer, but I know where I can go find it.
Exactly.
I know my resources, and I know my tools, and I know I'll go learn how to make sure I know it. So then we can get this accomplished.
Exactly. And in a situation where there's a scenario that fails.
Yeah.
You mentioned the word blame.
Yeah.
I try to not have that in my vernacular.
Uh-huh.
Something happened. What happened? How did it happen?
Right.
Was negligence part of that? Then if you were negligent, we'll make you not negligent.
Yeah.
There are ways.
There.
So that's why I try to do today.
Yeah.
Blame only does something, and it gives someone else negative energy from you.
Right.
You don't need blame. Fix the problem.
Absolutely.
Is it a problem?
Right.
Rearrange the procedure how you got that part of it accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
And keep at all times keep safety in mind.
Right.
I joke with my wife. Safety officer said to me today that that's not a good thing, so we can't do that anymore.
She says, "Hey, I want you to do the dishes." Well,
I'm the safety officer, dude. And safety officer says,
I'm going to need you to vacuum. Safety officer.
Dude, I don't tell you. You can use that if you wish.
No, she listens to the podcast. It's not going to work.
Well, I'm beating it all up here.
Yeah.
No, I was 22 years National Guard.
That's cool.
Yeah. I'll give you a short story just because it's funny to me.
Yeah.
I went in one morning. I'm an E6 at this point.
Okay.
I went in for our drill, and the platoon leader came to me and said, "Sergeant Orr, how'd you like to go to OCS?" I said, "No, ma'am, I'm a sergeant." Don't need to go to OCS. She goes, "No, the battalion needs some representation at the coming class of OCS. Would you please go?" "Yes, ma'am, I'll go." So I go to OCS. We have very strict things that we go by in this course.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they had us do in the daily activity of the course, when you're addressed by a tactical officer, your response is Sir Cadet, then your last name,
Right.
and your response. And you're doing this at large volume.
Yeah.
I'd been in this program for about 6 months, and it wasn't going, the class was not coming together. It was just not.
All right.
So this one particular afternoon, I'm feeling, do I really need to be here? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing?
Right.
So we were given a break period. So I'm rolling out behind the buildings. I'm going to go have myself a cigarette. And I decided I'm going to have some conversation with the good Lord.
Mm-hmm.
I said, Sir, Cadet Gary. That was the point I decided I no longer needed to be a student at OCS.
Right.
I went back to the battalion. And I went back, and it was okay for a while. And then I made E7 after a while.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, it might be a cool thing to finish my military career as a chief petty officer in the Navy. I went in the Navy.
Uh-huh.
Well, here I'm wearing an Army uniform.
Right.
But I've got my 20-year letter already. I mean, I got 20 years of service. I can do pretty much whatever I want to do, stay or go.
Yeah.
So I'm young. I've still got time. So I went up and I talked to the Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, Gary, you can, in 6 months, you'll have to drop a rank. I'm sorry, I was E7 at the time.
Uh-huh.
I was E7. You'll have to drop a rank to E6 because we can't take you as an E7. I said, okay. So how can I promote back to an E7? He says, well, you can do these couple of things. Okay, great. So I left the National Guard and joined the Navy.
Full time?
No.
Oh, the reserves.
Weekends only.
Uh-huh. And what's the Navy E6?
First class petty officer.
Oh, okay. And then the E7 is a what?
Is chief petty officer.
Oh, okay.
And then you have two ranks of chief after that.
Okay.
You're senior chief and master chief. So I'm in my first Sunday drill, or my first drill. I got through Saturday and back on Sunday night. Now I run into a guy I went to high school with. He's a chief. He's wearing a chief's uniform. Hi, Tim. Hey, yo. We're talking. Now the senior chief from personnel comes down and says, are you Gary? And I said, yeah. He goes, come with me. So he takes me upstairs and he says, I don't know what those guys downstairs told you on a Monday, but they lied. You're going to be asked to leave the Navy in 6 months. I said, why? He said, because of this thing called high year tenure.
Mm-hmm.
That means you're blocking somebody. That's the short version.
Okay.
My rank is blocking somebody else from being promoted.
Oh.
So the Navy's going to say, thanks for your service, adios.
And with all the bells and whistles that you would have had if you'd stuck it out.
Yeah. Not gone. Toodaloo.
Yeah.
Down at the end of this long counter is this commander, a lieutenant commander.
That mic stand keeps getting in your way.
Well,
huh?
I'm partially Italian. I talk with my hands a lot.
That's
so,
good.
Okay, I'll just
no worries.
Sit on them.
So end of the long counter.
Yeah, this lieutenant commander's standing down there, kind of propped up and leaning like this a little bit, and I paid no attention to it. So the chief says, I'm sorry, Gary, but that's it. There's nothing we can do. And I said, but the guy downstairs, this first-class torpedoman, told me this, and this, and this. He said, well, he lied to you. I said, okay, thank you. I'm going home now.
At least I understand.
At least I understand.
Right.
Monday afternoon, after I got off work, I went to the Navy Training Center.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked in the room where this torpedoman was. He stood up real fast. Because in our conversation before this that I just related to you had happened, he looked at me, he's a Vietnam veteran. He's got this salad all over his chest. He's got all kinds of color up there and medals.
All these ribbons and medals
yeah,
and everything else.
I call it salad.
It didn't spill from his lunch, yeah.
But I looked at him and I said, you wouldn't lie to me, would you? He goes, no, man, I wouldn't lie to a guy like you. I wouldn't lie to you.
Yeah.
Well, he did.
Yeah.
So I went in there that Monday afternoon after work, and he jumped up and said, the commander was down here this morning, and I've been transferred. The person at the end of that long counter, that lieutenant commander, fired him.
He heard what he done.
And his assistant.
Wow.
Fired them both.
Yeah, we got put somewhere else.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. So what happened after that was, because the Navy fired me, I still got time to serve. I want to serve. I called my command sergeant major and said, Al, because we were out of uniform, we're on a first name basis. La 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 la. He says, well, you get a hold of Roy Johnson, John Mahage, and see what he can do for you. So the next full drill of the Army National Guard, I went down and raised my hand and got assigned to a freight ship.
So you got Navy, the National Guard, Navy, back to the National Guard?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. 2 days in the Navy. And by the way, they did pay me for it. I was assigned this freight ship as an E6, and my first day back in National Guard uniform, I found myself in the engine room with a squirt bottle of 409 and some paper towels were wiping down the bulkheads. And I thought to myself, this is really cool. I don't have to go to a meeting. I don't have to give a briefing.
Yeah.
I don't have to be anywhere. I'm kind of liking this. So I finished out my military career. My last assignment was a 100-foot Army tug.
That's kind of cool, huh?
It was awesome.
Yeah.
It was great.
So you get out and you eventually retire at some point, and you retire from truck driving and you do all the different stuff. And you had mentioned at the beginning of this that you'd been playing in band since 6th grade or whatever, right?
Yep.
What were you playing?
Excuse me. Snare drum. I played that drum.
You played the drums, and you've been playing that since you were 6th grade.
Yeah.
And just tapping on your leg and tapping on everything and getting a set and doing all these different things.
Yep.
And so when you retire from your military service and from truck driving and from train life and everything else, you gave up the drums too.
No, sir.
No way.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I apologize.
And so you're at this point, you're playing the drums. And you're wanting to play the drums, and you're wanting it, and you're getting in bands, and you're doing all these different things because now you've retired, and as I'm talking to you in your current state, which is still alive, but I don't say
vertical.
Vertical. You're playing the drums still.
Yeah,
you'll still play the drums.
I play the. I'm sorry, something went down the wrong spot and it stuck. My parents bought a snare drum for me when I was in 6th grade.
Yeah.
I still have it. I play it.
That's cool.
They bought a drum set for me when I think I was in 9th grade. That is now set up in my home.
That 9th grader
drum set.
When
I got it, it was old.
Oh wow, that's cool.
I sadly, Ken, I didn't realize what I had at the time, and for decades, really, after I never realized what I had. They bought me a 4-piece Slingerland drum set. Every drum had calf skin heads.
Wow.
Every head.
For those of you that don't know, when you get were there hollow bottoms or are they skins on the bottom too?
Bottom too.
So with drums, there's heads on the top. That's the one you hit. There could be most of them nowadays have the heads on the bottom, but there was a point when they had open bottoms. Nevertheless, they were calf skin before. Now there are all sorts of polymers and plastics and oils and everything else, your heads. But back then, you just stretched that and you oiled your heads and you pulled that leather right over the top of that thing, and And that
was it.
That was it. And it sounded so good, huh?
Oh, it's such a warm tone. Plastic sucks.
Yeah.
Well, no, because you can do some. And you've taught me a couple of cool things about tuning.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you. It works really well. Yeah, it's a whole different thing with the calfskin and the synthetic stuff that they make them out of now, whatever they are. The tone is warm.
Yeah.
It's just a really warm tone. And, hit a drum. What's warm in a drum? Well, drummers know.
Drummers know. Musicians know, because you'll hit that big, and it has that resonance.
Yep.
That just keeps going, and you're like, oh, that's nice. It doesn't, and it doesn't have some weird.
Yeah. Well, I just changed the heads on that set.
Uh-huh.
I have acquired a new cymbal here recently, and I decided that I needed to rehead the drums. My 2 rides and my floor tom. I did. I reheaded them. I bought new heads.
Yeah.
And when I struck them in play, after I tuned them and done all of that, when I struck them, a completely different drum set.
Yeah.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
I got tones on my toms now I'd never had.
And so when you get that, you're like, it sparks something new in you.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It motivates you or inspires you to do
yeah,
something different and maybe play differently. And
a fellow drummer up in Washington has a disease, and I'm sorry, I don't know what it is, but he can't use his left arm like he normally would.
Uh-huh.
So he plays his drum set up like you and I would have the kit,
right,
a right-handed setup,
right.
But he plays left-handed. He has his ride cymbal on his. He works his ride cymbal and his sock cymbal, his hi-hat, the one that goes up and down, folks.
Right.
He uses his left hand on those, and he uses his right hand for the 2 and the 4 in hitting.
So in other words, he doesn't cross his arms; he keeps them open.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
So
you see drummers with crossed arms, or you see them open.
Right.
And so
exactly. So he says you should try this. And I thought, okay, I'll try it, blah, blah, blah. I tried it, and I'm so uncoordinated.
Sure.
Oh, it's horrible.
Had you tried it back when you were in 7th grade, it might be a different story.
It'd be tired. Oh,
yeah.
Hey, man, if I'd have done a lot of different things, it'd be a lot of different ways today.
Right.
But I've learned to do that.
Yeah.
And now, what it does, excuse me, for you non-drummers, what it does, it opens up everything on the drum set from just a little bit to your left all the way around to your right side.
Oh, yeah.
Everything's open up.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm practicing now, I finally realized, Ken, that you don't, when you're playing a song, I'm with a group called the DD214s.
Right, and I was going to actually ask you about those guys, so that's awesome.
Oh, that's a wonderful group of people. All of them, where there are 6 or 7 of us right now. It's through the Veteran Services Office here in Grants Pass.
Uh-huh.
We're all combat veterans.
Right.
The program was designed to bond through music and establish relationships, and that's what it's doing.
That's awesome.
One of the things I've learned, though, in playing is that you don't always have to play the same stuff the same way every time.
Yeah.
In that, I'm learning that there are some songs, some of the songs that we do have a lot of room for a shaker.
Sure.
Carlos Santana's got 4 guys playing percussion. How can I incorporate the shaker? Because it really works in some cases.
Right, yeah.
But then how do I then play the rest of the stuff that needs to be played?
Yeah.
So what I'm working with, Ken, is I'm working a shaker in my left hand, and I'm trying everything else in my right hand.
That's cool.
It's a trip.
That's cool.
It's fun.
So you're with the DD214s,
right?
That's a cool name in itself.
Well, it's registered, by the way. No one else can have that name.
Nice.
Yes.
And so, which is cool because now, if you're not familiar with what a DD214 is that's your paperwork that proves you were in the military.
That's it, man. That's
and so
it.
having your band named the DD214s, and you guys are playing jazz and rock and everything else that you can.
Actually, we're playing 60s music. The Vietnam era stuff,
yeah.
That's what we're playing.
Yeah.
Because that's who our audience is.
Yeah. That's cool, man. And you play it like, obviously when it wasn't coronavirus time, but fairs and stuff like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Huh?
Here in Josephine County, we played veterans events.
Yeah.
We've played for the lady military women at Rogue River Community.
Yeah.
We played once on campus here and the campus out down in Medford.
Yeah.
We've played the Veterans Days events here in Grants Pass. We're down to play, I believe, in March. There's an air show at the airfield.
That's cool.
It's going to be outside. So we did it 2 years ago. We played there.
So I'm assuming hopefully when we get to open things back up, you guys are going to just have some gigs and more gigs. And
We hope so.
that'd be cool.
There's an offshoot of our group called the Article 15s. Article 15. Many people out here know what an Article 15, but for those of you that don't know what an Article 15 is in the Army, it is a disciplinary action. You got caught and you got screwed.
Yeah.
Or you screwed yourself.
You got Article 15.
Yeah.
So that's cool. I mean, and so that's just it's just fun. It's retirement gig, and you can maintain it as still relationships with other vets and I know that your guitar player, singer, she is so in tune to what vets want.
Mm-hmm. She really is.
She really has this love for vets and making sure that they are able to go and still have a quality of life provided, after their service, after they've given time and they've given to their country, and that's awesome. And I think every single one of you, I've met several of you guys from the band.
Okay.
And every single one of you just wants to see other people do good and just want to have fun.
Yep.
And you want to just, you've been in combat. You've seen all the crap that combat is, that war is. And you're able to say, hey, I just want to have fun. I just want to have fun at this point, and I want to live my life, and I want to give back to people and provide, good times.
Exactly.
And so, we look at things a lot of times where we don't consider that all that we've done in life, there can be value to it. Even the negative stuff, the garbage stuff. And you said that you hated being in battle. It sucks.
Oh,
but
it's terrifying. On a note, just digress just a sec. My heart goes out and my hat goes off to an infantry people. Mm-hmm. I don't give a care if you're Army, Marine Corps, Special Forces, Special Detachment, somebody.
Yeah.
You guys experienced something that I only got to experience a little bit of it. That's that fear thing.
Yeah.
I never had to walk through a jungle and be aware of a tiny string going across the top of my boot. I never had to be concerned about the guy standing next to me that, he's no longer standing.
Yeah, we were just having a conversation about kids or family or wives and...
it's you can take that for a long, long ways. How many really important people, significant contributors to society, didn't get to?
That is a heavy thing to consider. Mm-hmm. There's so much potential in one person.
Oh yeah,
and that they're giving. They say that 80% or 20% of the people do 80% of the work. Mm-hmm. And you take away a number of those people because you don't like them, or you don't like their politics, or you don't like the thing that they don't necessarily align. They don't jive with you. You have your chemistry doesn't work. Whatever.
Yeah.
To say that you're better than somebody or that person doesn't have value.
Collateral damage. I'm sorry. That's the word I was trying to think of 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. But to say, but you're right. That value that somebody has, because they're just collateral damage. Yeah. They're just, that's what happens.
That's who we are today, Ken.
It's not. And that's just the whole thing, is that we're not. The Lord didn't put us on this planet for that. We are not here for that. And we don't have children. We don't develop relationships because we are. It's worth a loss, or life is cheap.
Can't do that.
Life is not cheap, and there's too many people that consider it that way because we see it in movies or we see it in whatever. And I'm not one of those people that thinks that video games contribute to violence in society or movies contribute, but I think it causes us to be callous to it. Mm-hmm. we're humans, and we have we have an evilness to us, because that's just what it is. It's there. But I think that there's so much more good in us that we have to be disciplined, and we have to know what's right. And if we don't teach what's right, it's going to go Lord of the Flies.
It's easy to be evil and hard to be not evil.
Yeah. Yeah. And
but it's worth the effort to not be.
Exactly.
Because the reward is far superior.
Absolutely superior. So, Gary, I've had nothing but just a great time just listening to your stories and knowing that, you gave so much, that you served, and you made sure that others had the opportunity to live, because how many times did you do something for, the guy next to you, because that's who you're fighting for mostly, is that guy next to you, because
That's exactly right.
Because you developed that relationship for the guy next to you, and with that person, nobody thinks about that. That's why we do things, but that's why we do things.
Oh, yeah.
And yes, I love that flag, that red, white, and blue.
Oh, baby.
I love it. I'm an American.
You're going to tear me up, dude.
I love it. But I know that when we go fight, when you went and fight, it wasn't because of that red, white, and blue. It's because of the guy next to you.
Mm-hmm.
But to serve for the long haul, that red, white, and blue, that country that your children are going to be in, your grandchildren are going to be in, and that needs to be there.
Just because we're not in uniform doesn't mean the fight doesn't end.
Right.
Sadly.
And that's where service comes in. That's why we need to serve other people. We need to be there for other people. And serving somebody, that doesn't mean that you're less than them. That doesn't mean... No, actually, you gain so much more. There's so much more that you gain when you serve somebody. Mm-hmm. And I've mentioned this before as well, that you need to give back, and you need to make sure others are well, because the more you give and the more you say, hey, I'm doing this for somebody else, or I'm giving to somebody else, or the more you do for others, the more you're going to feel good about yourself, and you're going to feel like, I've made a contribution, and I've done this.
Really, it's not, I don't know so much of it's feeling good about yourself as much as it is feeling better.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. I
give people rides to medical appointments, 3 days a week. There's a lot of sick people here.
Yeah.
In this town, in this county, sadly. But each one of them is very grateful for the service. I don't do it for the thanks.
Yeah.
I do it because I like doing it.
Would you say it's because it's the right thing to do?
Oh yeah, it's a right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's part of it's that community thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're challenged in church to take Christ to the community. Whoa, I got captives. I got them locked in, man.
Yeah,
but I don't pulpit from the driver's seat.
Yeah,
if
you more or less show it instead of
I try
preach it.
I preaching. I don't ever want to be a preacher.
Yeah,
I ain't good enough.
Yeah,
and no. My shoes are dirty, dude. I can't do that.
Yeah.
But what I can do is I can help somebody.
Yeah.
And I've had people ask questions that fortunately I've had the answer to, and it's helped them.
That's cool.
And that's the whole, there is so much need for comforting other people.
Yeah.
Today.
Yeah.
And if anybody can find it somehow, just to my wife, she's amazing. I told her a few months ago that she's an angel.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly believe that. What she's been through and her attitude, she's got to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
You said you were talking to her the other day.
Oh, she's an angel. I told her that. How can we take, this is not your format for sure, but I'm going to take the opportunity because you haven't turned me off yet.
Do what you do.
We're challenged in church to take Christ to the community.
Yeah.
How do we do that? We're supposed to be disciples. I shudder at the thought of being a disciple.
Right.
That is so huge. How do I do that? My wife does it very, very simply. She doesn't leave a check stand without saying, "Have a blessed day."
Right.
That's pretty powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And if you can, I sometimes let my emotions get in my way, and I'm sometimes not very nice. I have my times.
Sure.
And it's hard for me to I know I'm supposed to be nicer and kinder and all that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's very hard to do.
Yeah.
But I find that when I do it, I have a much easier day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think along those lines, people say, oh, you must be lucky or I got really lucky because of this happened or whatever. They're talking about themselves or talking about me or talking about whatever. And I consider what they say, and I think I don't think luck has anything to do with what we're doing. I mean that would mean that there's a chance that it could have, whatever could have happened, or there's a chance. Everything's by chance. I pour out a bucket of Legos and a building popped up from the bucket of Legos. There's a chance that happened. It's not a chance. I don't think that luck has anything to do with what we do, but we're blessed or we're not blessed. I think
you're blessed whether you know it or not.
Right.
If you're still breathing, you're blessed.
Right, and that's just it. And I said, no, I've been blessed however many times, whether it's my family or my wife or my, just having that, being able to make a peanut butter sandwich. I'm blessed with the ability to do that, because how many people are not able to do that?
Yeah.
But they're blessed in their ways, and you have to consider that the way in which you go through your life is the blessing that's put on you, and you're given this opportunity, whether it's because somebody was blessed before you and paved that way, or because somebody wasn't. They don't even know who you are, and they were thinking, "Yep, somebody's going to need this one day," and they put that out there for you, and you have that opportunity to be blessed. And so, what do you do with that? You do what you can. You do what's right. You have integrity. You have honesty. You have gratitude. And you have all these things that my previous guests have mentioned. You have all these things, and you take those, you make them part of you, and then you go and give them, serve them to other people.
Well, if all your previous guests have agreed on all of that, then there must be some validity to it.
And I'll tell you,
think?
whether they know it or not, and they were just saying, "Hey, that's just what I do. It's who I am." You're right, because that's what makes a hero. That's absolutely what the name of the podcast is, because that's who you are.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I'm not a hero. Yeah, you are.
Yeah, you are.
You don't realize it, And I even said the same thing to you when I was inviting you on here. You're like, "Well, I don't know about that."
Oh, I sure didn't. I really didn't have a whole lot of. I was going to come and go do this.
No, we're right.
But I'm really glad I did.
And
thank you.
I'm absolutely, like I said, blessed that I know you, and I know that I knew there was something more about that we can get out of you. I'll be able to squeeze that lemon just a little bit more to make
a little sour out of the old.
Because there's so much good that people that you can get something out of. There's so much good that people can get out of every single one of us. If our intent is to go out and do good and help others, that can always be explained to somebody, and somebody will get some good out of it. And that's at least that's what I'm thinking, and that's what I look for, and I know that it's out there. And so I thank you so much that you came on here and talked with us and told us and talked stories.
Well, thanks. I mean, I the thought I right now have in my head is this, and you've heard me say this in the past.
Sure.
I need to screw down my humble hat.
Oh.
And keep it on a little tighter.
We all do,
because it likes to slip sometimes.
Right, we all do, and that's where we have to go back and we have to look at ourselves and do that. So, I'm going to switch gears just a little bit, and I'm going to talk about the podcast for a minute for folks. If you don't know, well, okay, but if you're listening to this, I hope you do know that you can find us on Instagram. And you can find the What's a Hero podcast on Twitter and on LinkedIn and on Facebook. We're at What's a Hero. And you can find us on our website at the What's a Hero podcast.buzzsprout.com. And you can email me, or you can email through Twitter. Twitter has an email thing, and you can message me on any one of those social media sites, and be happy to talk with you and chime in. Tell us what you think. Give us your 2 cents, and or if you want to thank any of my guests for their service, Absolutely, because without them, we wouldn't even have heroes to compare by. So the more that we interact with each other, we develop relationships with each other, the more we're going to know that what we do has validity in life, and the more that we know that what we're doing will go beyond us and work through the future generations, because that's what we have to be considering. Because if we look at the news now, we see there's no hope. If we look at it like that, there is not going to be hope. But there's people that wake up every single day that want the best for us, that want the best for those around them, whether they know us or not. And you hear that in my intro, that they don't know you, but they want the best for you. And that's just it. Everybody, they want to just go do the best for you, and they want to show you what honesty is, and they want to show you what integrity is, and they want to show you what gratitude is, and they want to show you all these little things that you can use in life. And I want to thank you. I want to thank all my police officers and firefighters, nurses, doctors, and teachers, and my military vets out there who continue to wake up and do what's right for other people because it's the right thing to do. And you lose your motivation, and you lose your all these inspirations that you have. And if you lose those, you have to do something. Has to be inside, has to be deeper than all that surface stuff. And so that's where your blessing comes in, to be able to share that and serve with others. So we need to consider doing what we need to consider is getting up and looking around ourselves. Detach from our inwardness, work towards seeing a bigger picture, but we have to maintain our heart, like I mentioned at the beginning of this, when we do that. Heart is our innermost essence. So it's easy to focus inward when we're thinking about and we're using our heart, right? But what we need to do is work on our heart when we are inwardly focused, so that we can use it for that bigger picture when we detach. Working towards helping others and focusing on serving them. Sure, it sounds easy, but is it? It's not always easy, but it's always worth it, even if it doesn't seem it. I recently read in an article where the author was explaining this exact thing. As we struggle through whatever we go through, we forget our why. We make the comment, this is not worth it. It may not be worth it, but is the person or the people who you're doing it for, are they worth it? And I've said it before, the reason we are on this planet is for doing things for other people. The reason we're here is for other people. Friends, family, coworkers, classmates, or even strangers. What we do, and that we do that, will win the hearts and minds for everybody. So with that, I want to thank Gary for coming on. Appreciate it, sir.
Thank you.
Any final thoughts?
Be blessed, brother.
Be blessed. I'll do my part in that. And I want to thank everybody for listening. For Gary, thank you. I've been Ken. This has been the What's a Hero podcast, and we are clear.